Good morning. If you haven't got one, can you grab a blanket? It's not essential. It's just if you've got one handy enough, then just take hold of it, and you might want to use it for some of the postures. Um, so it can be useful. So it's good to see some of you have arrived this morning already. Just to do myself a sound check as usual, and just pop some music on as well. Hope you're all feeling good. Or perhaps, in fact, the reason you've joined or you're joining in this morning is because your back is tight. So this session isn't for people who have a back injury as such. So if you've hurt your back, and especially if you don't know, thank you for the sound check there, Vicky. If you don't know the cause of your back problem, or if you don't have a diagnosis for what's going on with your back, then I would suggest you do not do this until you have a diagnosis. So this session is for a tight back, maybe a tiny little bit of pain associated with tight muscles, but not extreme pain. If you've got extreme pain, this isn't something I would advise you to do. We're not doctors, and certainly it's something you can maybe explore once you've had a proper diagnosis, when you make sure that everything is okay structurally. If it turns out that your back is tight, and it's very, very, very common for people to have tight backs for lots of reasons, then this can be a great class. So it can be a really great way to just sort of free up your muscles around your lower back area. We can get tight in the back from too much sitting or too much standing. In fact, too much of any one thing. And it's the same with all body parts, but we tend to feel it in the back quite a lot. And so even if you're a runner, for example, you might suffer with tightness in your back, and you think, well, I'm quite active. Or if you've been doing a lot of walking, or if you've managed to get out on your bike over the last few weeks, you might still feel tight in the back. So unless you spend time working on the specific muscles of the lower back area, then you might find that it doesn't ease. Any kind of movement helps, but something that's more specific might be useful, which I guess is why people are going to join in this morning. So there's lots and lots of things you can do to help ease a tight lower back. And so these are just a few postures. I'm going to assume a basic level, but not an advanced understanding of yoga postures. So we'll go through everything in detail. And certainly, as always, in all yoga postures, only do what feels right. So if you start to move around and it doesn't feel good, then just stop. Okay, you can watch the video and see what's happening, but don't delve too deep into the stretches if you feel it's going to make it worse. You don't want to do that. Okay, so I will put the music on now, and then we'll start off laid down. So actually, if you want to start to lay down on your mat, I want you to lay down with your knees bent, so the feet on the floor, and your blanket just within arm's reach. And just check the sound of music here. Okay. So blankets within arm's reach. Your knees are bent, and have your feet wide apart. So as wide as your mat. Hopefully you can see me reasonably well with these leggings today. It seems like I'm in darkness. Anyway, feet wide, knees can gently knock together. So let the knees drop inwards, and you can rest the legs on each other to let the legs and the hip joints relax. Let the back of the head relax. And then I'd like you to take your hands and place them just around the groin, or just to the sort of hip area, just above the pelvis and just below the most part of the abdomen. So just sort of below the belly button, a little bit lower down. So you feel like your hands are resting around the front side of your hip joints. Let your elbows soften to the floor and relax the shoulders. So we'll take a few moments to relax, and a lot of tension in the lower back can begin, or it starts to manifest with tightness in the hips. So especially, like I was just starting to say there, if you are someone who's quite active, if you run or you cycle, You might have tight hips because of the action of those exercises. So helping to relax at your hips is a great way to settle in. And the other reason I want you to start laid down this morning is because we can get a bit of feedback from the floor, from the connection of the body on the mat. So let the feet rest. Relax the feet, relax the legs into each other, relax the back of the pelvis, relax the buttocks. Relax around your lower back area. So the back doesn't have to be flat to the floor. And certainly what I'd like you to do at this point is just find a neutral, natural, relaxed position for the lower back. So the muscles don't feel stretched and they don't feel active either. The belly relax. Soften around your lower ribs, front and back of the ribs. So letting the body settle down. Feel the weight of the upper chest in your shoulders, around the shoulder blades. The arms relax, elbows settle in. And then the neck is releasing the head to soften now the weight of the skull into the mat. Relax your face. And then switch your awareness to your breathing, to your breath and how the breath feels. So having discomfort, tightness in the back can certainly create a lot of tension mentally, emotionally. Stress levels tend to rise and vice versa. So actually, if you're struggling with stress, it can manifest anywhere in the body, but the lower back might be one of those areas where it's the body and the mind saying, just pay a little bit more attention, please. Help me out here. Let's do some work. And maybe find that you can ease both the physical sensation of tension and the mental manifestation of tension in the body as well. So the breath at the nose, if possible throughout the whole session. So in and out through the nose. Feel, and maybe with your hands as well, feeling that you can encourage the breath to move down into the belly. Feel the breath rise as your hands rise slightly as you breathe in. And the belly falls back as you breathe out. If I had to choose teaching or explaining a particular sort of postures on a particular body part, if I had to choose one area for the rest of my life, I would definitely choose lower back. Freeing up the lower back is very, very liberating. Something I've noticed personally over the last few years. So as we all get older, we naturally tighten up. And so freeing up the body makes you feel so much better. Feels your whole well-being improves. So with your breath moving in and out, see if that, and as you breathe out, so as you're releasing the breath from the body, you can release a little bit of tension in the body as well. So releasing around your hips, around the front of your pelvis, around the outer side of your hips, and around the buttocks as well. So releasing with each passing out breath. And look, if you're somebody who has pain and you're not sure whether this is the class for you, this is a great thing to do on its own. If you decide to opt out of the postures, taking some time to relax around your hips, your pelvis, your lower back, and it's nice and safe. You're on the floor, there's no strain. With your knees bent, there's no strain in the lower back. Okay, we're going to stay on our backs and we're going to move the body to a new posture in the form of cobbler or reclined cobbler. And certainly, as with all the postures that we're going to do, you want to just move carefully and see how it feels. So from a wide foot position, you're going to now bring the soles of the feet together. So walk the feet inwards. Nothing else has moved actually, apart from my hands, but the knees gently moving wider. Now, I'm not forcing the knees outwards. Obviously, granted, I'm fairly flexible. My knees go quite low, but you want to go to where you feel that your body allows you to move to without force. So let the knees widen and let's take the hands out wide as well. So there's an opening around the thighs, the inner groin, and your chest. Your shoulders roll back. And so remembering, we're not forcing the knees open, we're allowing them to soften. If the legs allow, if the groin allows. Again, check in with the buttocks. Notice any tightening around the buttocks. See if you can ease tension there. Stay with your breath. And of course, this is starting to add a little bit of a challenge compared to the first posture. So already you might feel this is starting to ramp up some sensation without any effort to do that. The body will just let you know if this is a tight area for you. If your inner thighs, your groin, hips, pelvis is holding tightness. And whatever you find there, that's okay. Okay, from here, gently ease the knees in. If you need, you could even use your hands to bring the legs back together and have the feet now hip width apart. So we're going to keep the feet hip width for the preparation of the next posture. And the next posture is sometimes called figure 4 or sometimes called, I call it pigeon prep. It reminds me of pigeon very much around the sensation of the hip, but it's got the addition, a great addition of being laid down. So we can make it fairly light in the first instance. So I want you to use these first few postures to warm up. You're going to bring your right ankle with the ankle flex. So draw the toes back, push the heel away. Bring the right ankle just above your left knee. So it's at the base of your left thigh. Okay, and see how that feels. So your right knee is sort of moving wider, it's moving outwards, a little bit like that cobbler posture. So that the inner thigh, hip moving out to the side. Again, see how it feels, decide how far you want to go with this. But if it feels okay, take your right hand and gently guide your right knee or thigh slightly further out, but without pushing yourself to a point of discomfort. The good thing about using the hand to do that is that you can help to keep to keep your right hip joint relaxed. So keep it, allowing it to stay relaxed, even though you're edging the thighs slightly further out and forward. But the hip joint, the muscles around the hip and the buttock can remain soft. Remember that right ankle is flexed. Might be quite hard to flex the ankle, that's okay. It might be tempting to let the ankle be more sort of relaxed, but keeping it flexed Just helps to keep the knee joint in check as you're doing this here. Let's begin to release this side. So taking the right foot down. Remember the feet are hip width to prepare. And see how the back feels. Maybe you already started to open up gradually. So left ankle across, of course, to the base of the right thigh, the ankle flexed, and then the left knee thigh moving wider. You want to keep your pelvis fixed. So notice if it wants to twist, and it might do that even if you try to resist that happening. Of course, you might have found that on the first side. That's okay as well. So we're easing into the joint without too much effort. But if there's a little bit of space to go further, the left hand easing the left thigh or the knee forward and wider. And again, take a few breaths here. Try to ensure that the left hip itself and the muscles around the left buttock remain soft. So apart from your hand and arm, the body and the legs are passive. So we're approaching these initial stretches with a passivity. That's a word, or I made a word up. Passively allowing the body to release. And then let's take a rest from that side. Let both feet settle down back to the floor. And then roll over onto one side, whichever side works in your space. We're not actually going to do any standing postures today. We're going to stay seated or, we have got one sort of standing posture. It's a deep folded position though. So gently bring yourself up. And then we will bring ourselves onto our hands and knees. And this is where you might want to use your blankets. Okay, most yoga classes that you go to, you will see this ubiquitous cat and cow movement, which starts in a tabletop position. So my thighs are vertical, the hip over the knee, and my arms are vertical with the shoulder over the wrist. As close to that as you can anyhow. And with the arms and legs fixed, so don't swing forward or backwards, keeping the joints, if you like, fixed. Let's move the spine only. So if we can keep the legs of the table still, we can wave the spine through a movement pattern, which can be really useful for the lower back. So let's start to explore what that feels like. Lift the chest, and of course, as you're lifting your chest, you can maybe see here that I'm letting my bottom stick out high. So the belly is sort of lowering to the floor. The pelvis is basically tilting forward, arching your lower back. And then as you breathe out here, don't worry too much about the order of the breath. The most important thing here is to get the movement in the spine. You can add the breath later if you're more familiar, you can do that. So back of the pelvis reaching back, the back pelvis is tilting backwards this time. And repeat. And this is a great movement for your spine. And if you were to do one thing after this session today, this is the one to do. It's simple. You can do it carefully. You can tune in. You can make the movement smaller if your back is very, very tight. And you can make it bigger if you're feeling a little bit freer. So if you know you suffer from tightness in the back, then don't wait for it to get tight. Keep moving to help keep that tightness at bay as much as possible. It's great for your upper spine as well. So the whole spine benefits from this movement. You can exaggerate the upper, you can exaggerate the lower. with the tilt of the pelvis and the fixation or the stationary position of your arms and shoulders. So to point out or recap, I'm not sure if I said the in-breath as you lift your chest and arch your back, and out-breath as you drop the chest and round your lower back. So rounding to me is the back of the pelvis reaching towards the sky. Arching is the pelvis tilting forward. Let's do 3 more of each. Slow and steady is always preferential over moving really fast. It gives you the time to time your breath, gives you the scope to observe how it feels. Okay, so gradually when you finish your 3 breaths, we're going to stay on the hands and knees, and this can be a little bit more of a challenge here. So it's not a challenge in the lower back, but perhaps in the feet. If you have tight feet, sometimes it might mean that you have tight hamstrings. If you've got tight hamstrings, you might find it's tight in the lower back. So the whole chain of the back body connects together and might manifest in tightness in the lower back. Okay, so I've got the feet hip width. I'm trying to tuck my toes underneath. If your toes are stiff, and a little bit stiff over the last few years, then bear that in mind. But know obviously that it might be beneficial to stretch them if they're stiff. And so what I'm doing is I'm moving the hips towards the heels, in the direction of the heels. The hips don't have to touch the heels. And I'm sort of pushing into my hands here to move the hips back, but within the scope of how you experience the sensation here. So a little bit of pushing, but also to help you stabilize in this position. It's almost like, and you can go lower if you want to, it's almost like doing child pose with the toes tucked underneath. It's not necessarily restful, but it's a really great way to get the feet active. Try to keep the breath steady. Breathing still in and out through the nose. A little bit of widening across the back of the pelvis into the lower back area too. Almost like beginning to stretch into the lower back, but not quite, nearly there. We're going to build on that a little bit more with each posture. Okay, we're going to release the feet now. So come back up onto the hands and knees. Gently release the toes. Ooh, might be quite intense experience there, so give yourself some time to adjust or let the body adjust. And over the next 2 postures, you can have the toes tucked or untucked, and so go with what feels best for yourself. The posture we're going to take now is a low lunge position. So you want to keep the back knee on the blanket if you have your blanket, and bring the right foot forward, not too far forward. So sometimes we do a long lunge position where the foot's way out in front, but what I'd like you to do is keep it fairly short in stance, but walk the right foot to the side so you can feel stable enough to come upright now. So roughly with the thighs perpendicular to each other, which creates a 90 degrees roughly on the front knee. And you should feel that as you sit or kneel upright here, your upper body can stack. So your shoulders stacking over your hips, and this left hip is over your left knee. So you've got a line of length upwards. The other thing you want to do is check the position of your pelvis in relation to how you've got your legs. So back of the pelvis, in my mind, I like to describe it as lengthening it down. So the back of the pelvis goes from a tilted and forward position to a longer, extended lower back space. So instead of arching your lower back like the cow posture, you're making it longer. Long in your lower back, back of the pelvis down, and you should feel something on your stretch on your left thigh. That's what we're aiming to do, is stretch the left thigh by the position of your pelvis. So very often the cause of lower back tightness is tightness in not the thigh itself actually, but the psoas muscle, which runs in conjunction with the thigh muscle up and over the front of the pelvis and into the lower back area. So bring the hands to the hips, maintain a long lower back, back of the pelvis down, and stay with this stretch, gentle as you need to, around your left thigh. Left front side of the pelvis as well. You might feel it there. You might even begin to feel it into the lower abdomen too. It can be quite intense. So steady out the breath, in and out through the nose. Try and encourage the breath to stay long. So fully breathing in, fully, and breathing out slowly and fully as well. It's nice to move into this and stay here. And sometimes a stretch like this, it's quite intense, but sometimes that intensity can drop away slightly as the leg gets a little bit warmer. And then let's gradually release. And to release, come back down with the hands into a tabletop position. You might want to move around again, move the spine in between the two sides. That can be a nice thing to do, and just see how the thigh feels, how the lower back is responding with what is basically a fairly simple stretch, but it's really good to get it in the right place with the position of the pelvis. Okay, let's set up the second side. Left foot, of course, forward, not too long a stance. Feel stable with the spacing of your back knee and your foot coming upright. Check the back knee is comfortable enough. You can obviously keep it padded up. You can tuck the back toes. Like I said, you can tuck the toes or have them untucked depending on what works best. And then try to come upright to stack your shoulders, hips, and over your right knee. Check out the spine, lower back, tilt of the pelvis. So again, pull the belly button in, back of the pelvis down, sit or kneel upright even to work that stretch on the right side. Again, use the hands for balance, whatever feels good, and staying with the stretch. It doesn't have to be so intense for you. You know, you don't have to make this the full extent of what you can tolerate. You know, if you were to say between 1 and 10 or 0 and 10, the intensity of the stretches or the sensations, if 10 was so intense that you couldn't properly breathe, then obviously that's not that useful. And you don't have to necessarily even go beyond 4. I mean, 4 for some people might be quite a big experience, just because it's a stretch you might never have done before. So start off gentle. If you find some relief from these postures, then you can always increase it slightly. It's worth knowing how the body responds a few days after stretches, not just during the stretches too. So take note of how you feel over the next few days, or whether you felt like you did too much. You can make it lighter if you were to repeat the postures, or the other way, you can make it stronger. So keep it light, make it easy to breathe. This is supposed to feel good, not a punishment. So that right thigh gradually responding with a steady breath. And then let's release. So bring the hands down. Bring that left knee back. Again, you can move between. You can take child pose between. That can feel quite nice too. And then we're going to set up another posture which looks similar, has a different opening effect around the hip. We're going to spring the right foot forward again. Again, not too long a stance, about the same as where it was for the previous posture. And that left leg, instead of being facing forward along to the narrow edge of your mat, you're now going to turn to face the long edge of your mat. So the left foot, in fact, I'm going to mirror image. So you've got your left foot out behind. And I'm going to, no, let me get that right. Have I got my, yes, you've got your left foot out behind. I'm going to have the opposite leg forward so I can still see you, or you can see me. So your left knee's on the floor behind you, your left foot out behind, and your right foot is out in front. So we're going to create around 90 degrees on that right knee again, and you're going to keep your left hip over your left knee. Okay, so we're going to keep this line, long line. Again, look at the tilt of the pelvis. Keep the back of the pelvis down rather than allowing the buttocks to stick out. However, the challenge here is to keep the back of the pelvis down and keep your right knee wide. So what I'd like you to do is bring your right elbow down the leg, maybe to the knee. You can go to the thigh if you can't get all the way to the knee. Use the elbow to keep the knee wide and turn the chest towards the sky. So the right arm is doing a couple of things. It's helping us move across, supporting us, and you're keeping the knee wider. So you should be feeling it on the inner thigh here, your right inner thigh, hip, groin, maybe on your left thigh too. Hand it wherever, left hand wherever feels comfortable. Turn the chest and keep the back of the pelvis down and the right knee wide. Now, if you feel good, and it's just really for a little bit more extension in the spine, you can reach the arm directly up overhead, or indeed you can add more side opening by reaching across the side of the face at the same time. The key thing is to work on the legs actually, so the right knee wide, back of the pelvis down. Trying to maintain what is an open chest, so the chest rolls towards the sky rather than rolling downwards or facing the floor. So keep it open, open, open. Open chest, open hips, thigh, groin, and breath. And then release, going all the way up. Okay. Take a moment. You can shift around as you need. We're going to do the second side. I'm going to again mirror image the posture. So you're going to switch to bring your left foot forward. If it's useful to face your screen, you can do, but otherwise go with the sensation. We're not doing anything different on the second side. It's your left foot out forward. Remember, roughly right angle on the left knee, upright with the upper body stacked over your right knee. Okay, so left elbow down the leg, maybe to the knee or thigh if you can't get that low, and the leg is moving wide, so the elbow arm is helping it to stay wide. Back of the pelvis lengthens down, which feels like the front of the pelvis is gently lifting. It's a slight side bend position. We're not going really deep into this today. You can keep your hand at the hip, or again you can reach directly overhead, or you can go further if you're feeling good. Maintain that openness around your chest, so facing the sky, turning as if you were to face the sky with your chest, that right shoulder rolling back. And steady breaths. You might be thinking, well, we've not stretched the lower back yet. No, we haven't actually. We're doing hips, we've done thighs. We're working gently on the psoas as well. Another important part of this, which I've already said, is the breath. So we're easing our way in, trying to encourage the nervous system to stay on board. You don't want to scare it off by doing something too intense, too quick. And then releasing, so bringing yourself gradually up. And again, you might need to, and you might want to even just bring the hands down to take weight off the knees a little bit. And you can move around. See how things feel, see how the legs feel. You might want to move side to side now. Okay, we're going to take a very different posture now. And this is where you might want to use your blanket to sit on. If you don't have a blanket, no bother. This can be an effort for lots of people who have tight backs, so bear that in mind. There will be an effort for this posture. It's not as passively opening as the previous couple of postures. So let's do our best here. Do your best to get the legs straight if that's feasible, right? If the legs don't go straight, do what you can. Flex your ankles again. Draw the toes back and push the heels forward. The other end of the posture is the pelvis and the lower back area. So what I'd like you to do for this today is to bring the hands behind as a way to help ensure that you lift your chest, okay? I'm using my fingertips on the floor to give me a little bit more height, but if that's not appropriate for you, you can use the heel of the hand. However, try not to lean back. You want to get length upwards, which is why I choose to do fingertips, right? So I'm trying to push to lift the chest. Remember, the legs are active, feet, heels push forward. And not only lift the chest, of course, lifting the lower back. So it's like you're trying to elongate the whole spine. You might be feeling this quite intensely in the legs themselves, the back of the legs, hamstrings. There might be quite a lot of effort to keep the pelvis upright. And so this can add an element of strengthening around your lower back here. Now, this is not necessarily what I'm going to suggest you do, but the idea is with time, when we get a little bit more supple around the lower back, you can sit upright without your hands, and that can add even more strengthening for your lower back area. So that can try and keep the pelvis upright, the spine stacked, without that tendency to lean back. So pelvis is neutral, but lifting the lower back with or without the hands here. You can keep the hands in place as much as you need. Okay. And then relax. Take a little breather here as you release. Maybe even relax your lower back a little bit. And we're going to take a posture similar to what we did lay down, with the soles of the feet together and the knees wide. So cobbler posture, a seated variation, is a nice way to relax the back of the legs and create a folded position with the lower back area. So legs bent means that you've got less pressure on the back of the legs. The hamstrings are relaxed. However, you do get obviously quite a bit of sensation around your inner thighs. So see how that feels. Again, sitting on a prop might be useful. So sitting on a blanket, folded blanket if you've got one here. And so again, sit tall, and I've got my hands on my legs this time. So I'm gently sort of pulling back with the hands to lift the chest. Try and lift up through the lower back. Some of you might find the knees are much higher. That's okay. Now, you can stay sitting upright. This is a great way to work into the lower back area. However, if you've got the scope and you want to try going further forward, you can begin to lower or move the chest towards the top of your mat. So let's not think about going down, but going forward. Trying to create length in the lower back. It's probably, in one sense, very tempting to round, and that is great. It can be great for the spine as well, but for the purpose of this today, feel that you're growing taller, and it starts with the pelvis being fixed to the earth, the spine growing from the roots long around your lower back and around your waist. Steady breaths. This can be a nice posture to close your eyes in, actually. So you can be here in what can be a fairly active posture, sort of fairly big sensations to keep the effort of long lengthening, but soft around the eyes and face to keep the breath flowing. Let's take another 3 breaths here. You could do this for longer in your own practice, or you can pause the video and stay a little bit longer. It's a great way to stretch the lower back in a nice, safe, controlled way because the legs are bent. Don't want you to feel that you have to get low down. Okay, great stuff. So relaxing, release, and again, you might want to use your hands to ease the legs in, and then curl the knees into your chest. Relax the spine, relax the thighs, the groin. Okay. Now we're going to set up a slightly more complicated posture, but nevertheless, I'll go through it. Hopefully I can make it clear enough. We don't need anything to sit on this time, so you can take your blanket to the side, and you want to have your pelvis in the middle of your mat. Now I want you to sit down on your right hip, outer hip and buttock. So you're actually going to sit with the pelvis in a tilted position, as you're not parallel to the mat for this. Let me just decide which way to go with this. Yeah, okay. And you've got your right thigh parallel to the narrow edge of your mat. So get your thigh parallel to the mat rather than your shin. We do sometimes do this posture with the shin facing forward. This is a little bit gentler in some ways. And so the legs are out behind and they're just relaxed. I'm not stacking the legs. I prefer to have the back knee away from the front foot and front leg. And again, just to recap, that left buttock is going to be lifting off the floor. It's not going to be down there unless you're quite open in the hips. So turning upper body towards or over your right thigh. So you're going to twist your lower back area now. So more or less, depending on how you experience this, you're going to turn towards the top or front of your mat. And you can stay in this position. So again, you can use your hands, your arms to stay long in the spine, twisted but long in the spine, or you can go lower. So if you feel that you've got the scope in your lower back to do this now, maybe a little bit warmer, you can lower down. I like to come onto the forearms. I know lots of people like to come down with the head on the floor too. So this can be quite a nice way to ease into the spine, but it's harder to get down, I guess, if you are quite tight. So forearms is great. I like forearms. It kind of just makes me feel a bit more in control of what's happening. It's another great posture to close your eyes in. And so this is called deer pose or twisted deer pose. Actually, this posture you can relax. Actually, it's a big posture, big sensation, but if you can approach it with a passive method, you don't have to put much effort in to be here. Apart from stay with your breath. And this posture, you could actually hold for minutes, so like 3 to 5 minutes, if that was something that you wanted to melt into. We use this posture a lot in my yin yoga classes, so maybe you might know this posture. It's a great way to loosen out the lower back without any strain. And so you can stay there longer again if you want to. We'll slowly come up and just see how it feels. I'm going to do the second side, of course, so I'm going to spin round. And remember, you've got the thigh parallel to the top of your mat. The legs are out behind. You're sitting on the left buttock. Your right buttock is going to be lifted. And you're turning over the left leg. So again, you can use the hands. Hands might be enough of a twist for you here. So hands down, slight shift forward. Legs can relax and be passive around your lower back. So this is a really great opener in the lower back area. You don't have to go low down. Close the eyes if it suits. Relax as much as you can. Again, steady breaths here. And then slowly releasing again. You can stay longer if it feels good. Okay, so we are going to stand now. This is going to be a fairly passive standing posture. I'm not sure whether you can see my head when I stand up. Oh yeah, just okay. All you need to do here is take your feet a bit wider than your hips, just for a bit of comfort and space around your legs. We've done a bit of work on opening the hips, so this can be quite nice, just to have the feet a bit wider. The feet flat to the floor. Try and spread your toes. Really useful to see this from the side. Aim to bend your knees so that the hips move backwards. So you can see I'm folding, as I do that with the knees, I'm folding at my hip creases, okay? My lower back is long, okay? I'm not folding, I'm not rounding in the lower back area. So try to keep your chest forward and the shoulders back. The knees are bent to allow the back of the legs to relax, and the buttocks can move out backwards. So fold at your hips. Keep the lower back long. And so I've got my hands on the thighs or just above the knees. And see if that keeps your back long as you do that. If you can keep your back long and then lower your elbows down, you can see my back hasn't rounded yet. It might do in a minute, but you want to keep the lower back long for as long as you can. And what you're aiming to do here, if you do progressively lower down, is get your belly close to the legs or to the space between your legs. So your abdomen sits close, okay? If you're quite tight around your lower back, your abdomen will be pulling away from your thighs. So long spine for as long as you can. Now you can stay with option 1 with the hands down. Option 2 is the elbows or forearms down. And this is a great way to stretch out the lower back. Option 3, if you're ready, is to release lower. And lower might mean holding down your legs, or you can touch the floor. But notice how I'm still got my abdomen close to my thighs. My lower back is rounding a little bit more, and the upper back is definitely rounding. Try to get the neck to release the head, and then you can get a nice stretch through the whole spine. So as if you could let the weight of the head gently stretch out the upper back, mid back, and around to your lower back as well. So ideally, upper body is relaxed, but there might be a certain effort to keep your legs in this place position. And if you, like me now, if your legs are starting to get a bit tired, you might notice a few shakes and wobbles. That would be normal as well. So you might also begin to feel stretching in the back of the legs. Steady out the breath, in and out through the nose. Try to soften your shoulders. Check the neck is relaxed. Nearly done. You can stay here longer. First few times you try this, it's worth maybe 10 breaths or so. We've probably done about that now. And so slowly, gradually beginning to release. And you might want to come up part way if you feel a bit dizzy, and then gradually coming up. So it's sort of like beginning to move into a passive stretch of the lower back without forcing the back to do something it's not so familiar with. Okay, we're going to lay down on our front and try to get your feet on the mat, and hopefully, unless you're very tall, your head will be on the mat too. Now you're going to have the forearms either stacked or out in front, and the head is going to settle on to the forearms. The neck is relaxed, so you're actually going to keep the head down. I guess you might want to see before you join in with this, so you want to look up if you need to the laptop or whatever you're using, your iPad. Have the toes pointing backwards, and as you point the toes backwards, extend the legs out. You want to keep your pelvis fixed to the floor, and you're going to keep your upper body fixed as well. You're not going to move the upper body. Toes point back, and then you're going to slowly and gradually, with the leg straight as you can, lift one foot at a time. So right foot lifting. Lift up as you breathe in slowly. Pause at the top, breathe out. Breathe in again, slowly. And then as you breathe out the second time, lowering the foot back down to the floor. Okay, and we're going to do this several times on each side. So if you are joining in, if you haven't already laid down, get yourself laid down. Fairly simple around the upper body, just comfortable. Pelvis is fixed, the legs extended. So second side, when you're ready to join in, remember the left leg and the legs are going to be straight. So lifting the leg. Now, it doesn't have to be high. In fact, breathing out at the top, breathing in again, and breathing out as you gently lower down. In fact, I'd advise you to lift without feeling that you've got to get high. So keeping an active leg, and certainly if you're tight in your back or your back muscles are quite weak, you might struggle to get the leg high at all, and that's okay. So don't be tempted to bend the knee. When you're ready, second time on the right side, inhale. Hold the leg up, breathe out fully. Try not to twist the pelvis. And as you breathe out, lower down. Second side, inhale, lift. Even if it's a tiny amount of lift, that's okay. And as you breathe out, lower down. So this is like a locust posture, or just sort of stripping it back a little bit actually to activate the lower back. Inhale, right side. Exhale fully. And really slowly moving as you breathe out, slowly lowering back down to the floor. You might feel this quite quickly in the buttock or the hip. Inhale, left. Hold the posture, breathe out. Breathing in. Breathing out, lowering down. Inhale, right. Exhale. Inhale, right. Exhale, lower down to the mat. Inhale left. Exhale. Inhale, keep the leg lifted. Exhale and lower. Let's go again. First side, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Slowly lower, exhale. Inhale. Helps to point the toes, so make the leg actively straight. Not for aesthetics, but just to help keep the leg firm. Breathe out, lower down. Inhale right. Last one we'll do on the left here. And then lowering all the way down. Relax both legs. So as you relax, let the heels roll away from each other. Almost like the toes want to roll inwards, but just to really soften the thighs, the buttocks. Go a few breaths. Okay, we're going to slowly begin to push ourselves up onto hand and knee. You can do more of those. When you're starting out, I didn't actually count how many we did. We probably did about 6 or 7 on each side. You can gradually maybe make a note of how many you're doing and how it feels, and you can increase that to increase strength. So that's a really great strengthener for your low back. You might feel that now. We're going to lay down with the blanket, and I've got my blanket now. It might depend on the size of yours. Fold it so it's as thick as you can make it, right? So it's going to be about this size. It's going to hold your hips up, your pelvis up, and with a little bit of depth, it's just going to lift you slightly off the floor. Okay, so you're going to lay down, hips in the middle. Blanket is now going to slide underneath the back of your pelvis, underneath your buttocks, and fairly relaxing, I should guess. You don't want it to feel it's too high and it's too challenging. So if it's too high, make it lower, or unfold the blanket a little bit so it's not as thick. Okay, this is the posture we often use a bolster for in the class. So if some of you have a bolster at home, then you can use your bolster here. This is a nice gentle way to try this out if it's not too high the first few times you try. What we're going to do is keep the left leg on the floor, the left foot down, and draw the right knee in. So the right knee is going to move into your chest. Now the pelvis is lifted slightly, so check that you're not rolling off your blanket, and use the hands to hug the leg in towards the upper body. So again, we've got to minimize the gap between your thigh and your abdomen. You can use the back of the leg if it's easier to reach. If that doesn't feel good on your knee, you can hold it wherever you like. And squeeze the upper leg, or the leg into the upper body. Hug the leg in. Going to keep the leg hugged in. And now extend the left heel forward. So lengthen the heel forward. Again, flex the ankle as much as you can. And try to, keep the foot down. The left foot's going to be on the mat, but lengthening the leg. The leg might not go straight. And if you notice that that's happening, because it's impossible for it to go straight, that's fine. But that might be exactly the stretch you need. If you have a tight psoas muscle, it tends to mean you can't straighten your leg out as much as you might have liked. Okay, so heel forward, right thigh in, steady breaths in and out through the nose. If you had a bigger prop underneath your pelvis, you would get more of a stretch here, but you don't have to. Don't worry if you haven't got anything underneath your hips, you can still do this. It's nice to do this gradually anyway. You can play around with a thicker blanket another time. Lengthen the left heel forward. So there's an active effort to keep the heel driving forward and down. But the hands are doing the work on the right side. So try and relax your right hip. Work with your breath here as well. Remember that exhale is about releasing. And let's release to bend the left leg again. Rest the foot down, release the right foot down. Take a moment between this first side and the second side. There's no rush to jump along. Notice how you feel. So when you are ready, let's set up the second side. Draw the left knee thigh in towards you. Hold firm with the hands. Hug the leg in. And this on its own actually provides a great benefit, stretching the lower back. You might feel it there already. Let's go with right leg forward if you're wanting to join in with that element of the posture. Not as restful, but it's a really great stretch here. Right heel pushing out in front and down. The leg might not go straight. Might notice a difference between the two sides. The back of the pelvis stay heavy on that blanket. Hug the left leg in. Steady breaths. Again, you might notice a little bit of shaking in the legs. The standing posture we did, the cobbler postures, and this kind of thing all activate the psoas muscle, and they often respond with a little bit of shaking. From on a muscular point of view, you're activating the muscles, but on a nervous system point of view, you're helping to release tension, emotional tension, stress. And so you might notice that today, even if you don't normally have that, because obviously we're living in a stressful situation. And so you might notice something going on, helping you to release that tension today, which is great. So we can let that happen. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean something is untoward. It's just the body is doing what it needs to do. And so this time as you release, let's draw both knees in, hug both legs towards your chest. You can have the legs wider or together. And again, stretch out the lower back as you hug the legs towards you. Okay, we're going to move into one more posture. And we're going to finish with a twist, or a kind of twist, hip twist. Take the blanket away, take it to the side. We don't need that unless you want it for relaxation at the very, very end. Feet on the floor. So where we started, which was figure four pose or pigeon preparation posture, we're going to do the same thing. Your right ankle on your left lower leg. So again, ankle flexed. The right knee's wide and forward. See how this feels. Remember we did this earlier, so notice if there's any change or what it feels like at this point. If you've got space, you can take your arms wide. If you don't have that much space, you can bend your elbows. Try to keep your elbows at shoulder height if possible. Don't worry if you haven't got the room. But then let both legs, without shifting the position of the lifted foot, but let both legs drop further towards your left side. Now they may not get to the floor, right? So you might be more sort of hovering in the air. That's okay. But allowing the legs to move over. Try to keep the right ankle on the left thigh in the place that you put it. So rather than letting the leg shift around, keep your left knee low and your right knee forward and wide, active in your right ankle stays flexed. If it's possible, try and settle in and relax here. It might not be that simple because the legs are working to do a stretch and twist at the same time. You could turn the head to the right. That can be nice to release the neck, but this is not essential here. Go with what works for you. And again, steady breaths. Let's take 3 more breaths. No rush to release, but when you do release, keep the legs in the same format. So don't uncross, keep the right ankle on the left lower leg, shall I say. And now use your hands and arms. You're going to take your right hand through the space of the 2 legs and see if you can, again, clasp hold of your left shin, your knee, or your thigh. So you're keeping your right ankle flexed, the right knee moving wide. And now you're challenging that a little bit more by using your hands threaded through, well, one hand threaded through the space of the legs to hug your left leg in. So remember how we eased your right knee forward, your right thigh forward with your right hand. See if you can even do that with your right elbow now. So you can be kind of clever around utilizing your arms as if you've got 3 arms here. So hugging the left leg in and easing your right knee wide. Just a few breaths. And then releasing down. So bring both feet back gradually to the floor. Good. Are you feeling good? All right, let's set up the second side. Left ankle across, ankle flexed. We'll go to that twist first. Again, arms as you prefer. Let the legs gently drop across to the right. Might not be all the way down, right? Legs easing across, settling in as much as you can. Relaxing here if possible. You could turn the head to the left. Hopefully at this point, beginning to feel some of the benefits of releasing tension around the lower back and hips. Maybe feeling a little bit more relaxed. And one more breath here. And again, as you release, remember we're not changing the legs apart from bringing them upright again. Left knee stays wide. Thread the left hand through the space of the 2 legs. Grab hold of your right leg wherever you can reach. Try to keep the head and shoulders down. Left ankle is flexed as you draw your right knee in towards your upper body. Your left knee wide. If possible, you could even use your left elbow to prop it open wide and forward at the same time as drawing your right thigh in. Again, we don't need to go to a really, really deep sensation. I'm kind of assuming maybe you're a bit warmer in the back area now and your hips since we started. So it's just whether this feels appropriate for you. And steady breaths. Okay, let's slowly begin to release back down to the floor with the feet. We're going to relax now. We're going to take a few minutes of stillness, of releasing any sensation. You can keep your knees bent. So if your lower back is still quite sensitive and you prefer knees bent is preferential. Or if you're feeling good, you can extend the legs out. You can use your blanket over you as you let your legs relax. So do everything you can to encourage your legs to relax down. Shoulders back slightly, open the chest, but then resting your chest and resting your arms and resting your head. And you can lay out, even yourself out, get yourself comfortable, balanced, and eventually settling in to be still. So do whatever you need to do in these initial stages to settle in, tweak as necessary, and then commit to finding stillness for some time, for a portion of the time, at least to relax now. Make sure the lower back is comfortable. It doesn't have to be flat, doesn't have to be stretched, just comfortable muscles. If you haven't already, maybe close your eyes and soften your face. Relax the jaw, encourage the breath to flow freely and naturally in and out of the nose, if possible, the nose. Finding a stillness beginning to seep into the body. Allowing the body to become passive. Feeling the weight of your limbs, the weight of your head, the weight of your chest, the weight of your pelvis. Allow the whole of the back of the body to gently, gradually dropping into the earth. Feeling the density of the bones, the fluidity of the soft muscles and joints, and the lightness of the air of your breath moving in and out of your nose, your throat and chest. The lightness of breath. And then beginning to re-notice through observing the sensations. Re-notice the hands and the feet, the sensation of the body becoming alive, or the body is alive, feeling that aliveness down in the sensitive skin of the hands, the fingers and the toes. Allowing your awareness to now travel up the limbs, up towards your pelvis, your lower back, your chest, your shoulders, and into the head. Awareness of the head, the face, awareness of the breath. Beginning to wake up through moving fingers and toes, gradually bringing movement back in. And then begin to bend your knees. So you might like to bend your knees again. I've done lots of this, but it's a great way to check in before and after classes like this. Draw the legs in, rock side to side. Press the lower back into the floor. And keep rolling all the way over to one side. And pause on the side, support the head. And then press the top hand into the floor. Gradually bring the head up last. So coming up to a sitting position, bring the head up last. maybe cross-legged, however you prefer. In your upright position, lift and extend your spine. So pelvis is neutral. Notice any rocking back of pelvis. Try to lift your lower back area. Bring the hands to the chest. Thank you for your practice. As always, thank you for joining in, whether you caught me when we were live or whether you've watched this on repeat. Don't hesitate to get in touch with any questions about the classes, the postures, and I look forward to the day when we can see each other in person. Namaste. Namaste. Have a good day. Thanks for joining in, guys. Take care.